Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern14.com here to talk about SEC basketball action over the weekend. Full disclosure, I had an 8-year-old birthday party, so my attention span was a little less than it's been before. Blake, I know you watched a lot. I watched what I could. I guess the big thing that we were watching was Arkansas-Alabama. Alabama holds on for a 1-point win over the Razorbacks in a game that if you look at the box score, I'd still have a hard time explaining how Alabama won that one.
I don't think either team played real well. That's why I think if you're Arkansas, it's probably one of those that you feel like you had your chances because, you play basically an entire half without J.D. Note. He only plays 24 minutes. You just don't get your same production because he's not on the floor because he gets 2 fouls in 4 minutes or whatever it was. And, yeah, you were still right there with a chance to win, and you had the lead, with whatever, couple left in the game. And I felt like they were in a good position to – I think at halftime I'm looking up and saying, man, Alabama should be up more right now because you have Note on the bench the entire half, and you just feel like they should have been in a position to be up more, but they weren't. And that's why I think even though they pushed it out a little bit early in the second half, you just felt like Arkansas was going to make that run eventually, and they did. But somehow Alabama manages to find a way to win. I still don't know how they did it. I guess going 17 to 27 from 2 when you're not making threes, it's what you have to do. And we said that was going to be a challenge in terms of how efficient was Alabama going to be against Arkansas defensively, and you just didn't really know what to expect there. But yet they made the most of their opportunities. Arkansas missed a lot of close shots. I mean, everyone's kind of talked about that, the layups and such. And I know, there are some people that you could certainly look at and feel like there was a little contact on certain things. But still, to win a game with 24 turnovers against a team that had, won as many in a row as Arkansas did, you'll take it if you're Alabama. It wasn't pretty. Again, I don't think either team probably felt like they didn't play their best in that game, but it's Alabama walking out with a win. And Arkansas it does kind of feel like a missed opportunity because, you did have Note on the bench as long as you did, and you were still right there with a chance to win. But Jalen Williams, I mean, he was fantastic.
Terrific. Yeah.
As expected. We've said how well he's been playing lately, and yeah, he was excellent. And so good game. I think it's a good game from a score standpoint, but both teams are probably thinking, man, we could have done a couple of things differently. And there are several areas you could point to. So.
Okay, let's go back and rewind the last Arkansas possession of the game. I mean, I think everybody in the gym knows that the ball's going to J.D. Note, and I think if you're Arkansas, you want him to get your last shot for reasons we all know. He's the kind of kid who can make that play. But I've never, and I know there's two ways about this, right? Because if you score too quickly, you leave the other team with some time. But if you don't score and you wind it down, you don't have a chance to get a second possession to do something about it. That's one thing. So Arkansas chose the all-or-nothing option, basically, and to wind down the clock and then let him get whatever look he got. But when he starts going to the right side and there's 3 defenders converging on him and there's still some time left, don't you realize at that point that the success rate of that play is not high? Do you take a timeout with 4 or 5 seconds left and just reset from out of bounds? Because as soon as he drew 3 defenders, you're like, he's not going to get a good look. And sure enough, he did not.
Yeah, I mean, what did Arkansas, they have 2 timeouts left, 1 timeout, something like, I don't remember. It may have had 1 left. But, yeah, I think there's a lot of questioning on that, and probably especially, too, the play after that, when you get the rebound and, I don't know, you make 1 quick or at least get it to half court, maybe you have a second left. It all is kind of a blur at this point for how that game finished. But I saw a lot of that on Twitter and such, just people wondering, you've got your opportunities to call timeouts there. Do you reset? Do you try to do this or that? I know there's multiple schools of thought on this, whether you feel like maybe your best chance is not having the defense set and those kind of things. But again, I said it a minute ago. I mean, those are the kind of things that if you're Arkansas, you go back and question. You second guess yourself on different plays and different spots in the game. And I think for Alabama, it's the same way. And they just happen to get a big shot, to win the game, and they just happen to be the ones that make that shot. So I understand. Yeah, I mean, it's again, you could probably go back and a lot of that stuff down the stretch. There's probably several things you would like to do different in terms of shot selection and maybe getting a better shot period. But yeah, it was just a very interesting finish to a game, and I thought that Alabama really gave Arkansas every opportunity. And on the flip side, I think Arkansas gave Alabama every opportunity, and it just kind of
Yeah.
wound up being Gurley makes the shot that by no means was pretty, but it went in, and that's just kind of what it comes down to sometimes. And I think that as we always talk in the SEC, it's not unusual in the SEC to see both fan bases upset with the officiating, but that's kind of what you got in this game, and I think that was warranted for certain stretches with some of the calls that were made. But at the end of the day, it just kind of was a game where Alabama made one more play, and that was kind of the difference here. So.
Well, the thing if you're Alabama that you just got to be frustrated with is your three best guards turn it over 16 times combined. Didn't expect that, and Arkansas can do that to you at times. But I guess the most positive thing for Alabama, other than getting a win, is Charles Bediako was pretty good at times. 9 points in 14 minutes, and I think made enough of a difference that they won that game.
Yeah, we said coming in quickly. I mean, that Arkansas was top 35 nationally in turnovers forced. So I think that's something that we didn't expect to be this many, but man, that's a team that's done that consistently this year. And even though I think some of the mistakes were Alabama's own doing, it's just I think with the nature of how Arkansas plays, that can force you into a lot of mistakes. But yeah, I mean, I think for Vidiaco, I mean, coming off, he's just someone that at 7 feet for Alabama to have that kind of presence in the paint. We know Gurley has more experience, and but still, like Ediako's like that guy. Like he's the 7-footer, big man, sort of prototype type guy that has to be able to make plays in there to give you an opportunity. And look, you got Jalen Williams on the other side that I think right now is probably one of the 10 best players in the league at this point. And I look at that and you see the matchup and different things, and you just got to make plays again sometimes. And so to get something out of him is good. And but I think that's going to be the question for Alabama moving forward is you just the consistency hasn't been there across the board, and I think it's just you want to see way more of that from everyone, and you want to see the entire group be a lot more consistent. This was a tough matchup against a team that has been playing as well as anybody, not just in the SEC, but in the country. And yet they won the game, and that's one that you get out of there. And I think even Nate Oates said it afterwards. We could have played a lot better, and I think both teams would say that. And you just get out of there with a win, and you move on, and you see what you can take away the positives, whether it's Bediako, whether it's just a couple guys hitting big shots. You take it for what it is, and you just move on and try to improve on it. So.
Well, things of significance, the net rankings for these teams didn't change a whole lot, but I think we have talked about Alabama just needs wins. The strength of schedule is going to take care of them getting in the tournament and helping with the seeding if they just get enough wins. What you didn't want to see is Alabama being 17 and whatever or 18 and whatever heading into the tournament, and then being 7 and 11 in the league or whatever. That's a big step towards Alabama just doing enough in wins and losses to make sure it gets in the tournament with a little bit of room to spare. For Arkansas, I don't think that really changes anything other than probably eliminating the slim shot that the Razorbacks had to challenge for the league title, which I would not have put a lot of money on anyway, but I think losing that one probably ends all realistic hopes of Arkansas in an SEC title.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a challenge when you're three games back of Auburn right now. And but I mean like we said, they still got a lot of good big games left. And if you beat Kentucky, that hands Kentucky another loss. And but yeah, it's going to be a challenge based on the schedule. Both Alabama and Arkansas are, I think, going to be fine the rest of the way just because of the schedule they played in Alabama's case and the schedule they're going to play overall in Arkansas's case. So I think both these teams are going to have a really good chance to improve their seeding the rest of the way. And if you're Arkansas, you just won 9 in a row. You're not going to be hurt by a 1-point loss at Alabama. So I think it's just a matter of how do they bounce back against Missouri on Tuesday. But I think this team is perfectly fine. I don't think that's a bad loss by any means.
A&M Auburn was exactly what we thought it would be. And
Yeah, not a
Walker
lot to.
Kessler, my goodness. Hey, when did he? How many minutes were left when he had secured his triple double?
It's just kind of what you expect from this guy. I mean, he's
Yeah,
the second best player in the league, and any other year he'd be the best player in the league if Oscar Tshiebwe wasn't, playing on for Kentucky. So yeah, I mean, this was a game exactly how you expected. Sort of a grind for Texas A&M, just trying to find points, and that's about what we thought. This is a team that's been up and down, and they had a nice balance, but they just couldn't. It's just hard to stop Auburn. It's just there's so many challenges we said when it comes to trying to construct any sort of game plan against Auburn when you're trying to figure out, all right, how do we get around Walker Kessler? How do we stop Jabari Smith? How do we figure out what we're going to do with these guards? There's just so many things you have to try to factor in when you're preparing for this team, and this was another example of that. You can only prepare. What do you do to prepare for a guy that's going to get 12 blocks? It's just impossible, and it's just hard to do. And Auburn wins by 17, goes 3 of 25 from three. How many times have we said that about a Bruce Pearl team over the years? Not many, because there have been some of those teams that have had to have that 3-point shot to be able to win games. To just win, period. But you win convincingly. Making only three threes. And so I think that's just something that's different about this team is I think one of the questions we had coming in is how good of a 3-point shooting team is this going to be? Well, it's still been a team that's certainly made some shots from outside, but it's nowhere near some of the other teams. And yet they've still managed to be, one of the top couple teams in the country. And that's because they just have guys who can get to the rim. They have guys who can, make jump shots like Jabari Smith. They have guys who can get putbacks, those kind of things like Walker Kessler. Just so many different dimensions to this team. They're not just one of those teams. I think that the biggest thing you can point out, the biggest flaw with Auburn right now is what? For a lot of people, it's probably going to be how they play on the road sometimes. That's a flaw. But the NCAA tournament's not played in true road games. Neither is the SEC tournament. And the other thing I think is going to be shot selection at times. And we talked about that earlier in the year. I said, I don't know if I'm that concerned about it. But there have been some times where it's popped up. But I there's not a lot else out there that you're going to point to this team and say, man, they don't have this or they don't have that. They have all the pieces, and I think that loss to Arkansas. We mentioned if they were going to lose one, that was the place to do it, just based on how well Arkansas had been playing. This was about how do you bounce back. They bounced back in a very good way, and now it's just a matter of can you keep that going because you've got some tough games left on your schedule, and you're going to get everybody's best shot especially I think on the road, because all three of these road games they have left are losable based on your competition. But I just think Auburn's still in a really good spot.
What's the record for fewest minutes needed to get a triple double? Because he only played 24 minutes. That's crazy.
Yeah, you got me on that one. I don't know, but it's.
I mean,
I'm
think
sure
about this.
that's.
What are the odds of blocking 12 shots in 24 minutes alone? Much less getting the
Right.
other parts of that. That's
Oh, I have to
crazy.
believe that rate in and of itself, just 12 blocks, 24 minutes. I mean,
Well,
that's
like
basically a half,
at
right?
some point, don't they quit challenging you to where you can't even get that many blocks? That's one of the craziest numbers I've ever seen.
If you go 3 of 22 from three, you're like, how else do we get our points if we can't make a
Yeah.
three? And that was the unfortunate place they found themselves in. It's like, well, we can't hit a shot from outside, so we got to do something else, and
Yeah.
not against him. So
The other thing out of this game, Alan Flanagan has kind of been sitting out there in the weeds. We thought coming into the year he might be this team's best player if he was healthy. He got 16 points. They really haven't needed him. He's kind of been the part that would be a luxury for them to have. That might be overstating it, but I think if Alan Flanagan contributes at that kind of level, I mean, Auburn's scary anyway, but that's the one thing we haven't really talked about is what if he starts being Alan Flanagan again? Then I don't know that may be the best team in the country if he does that. I mean, it may be anyway, but
yeah, we said it would probably take him a little time, I think, to get back into it, and I think you've kind of seen that. He's had some ups and downs, but he's still been someone that he's had to be on the floor for them. I think he's just part of that. One of those guys just got to be on the floor. So, yeah, just add something else to them. And that's the thing is they were having all the success, and we kept saying, look, just wait. Like they still got Flanagan coming back, and now they got all the pieces in place. I mean, even guys, like Dylan Cardwell and Cambridge and guys like that who just they don't play a ton of minutes, but man, they're very productive when they're in there, and
Yeah.
that's what I mean with this team. They just, they are whatever, however many deep, and they've got so many options, 9 deep, I guess you could say, really with this team. Um, yeah, they're hard to prepare for and hard to match up against.
Well, normally that's the kind of game where Walker Kessler does that. That's what his second triple double of the year. He starts becoming the poster child for player of the year. But then Oscar Sheboy goes and gets 27 and 19 and 3 steals. Does it with Colin Castleton back for Florida, and Kentucky just keeps rolling.
Yeah. Um, I mean, it's just Kentucky is Kentucky. We said going in, I don't even remember what the number was, but we were just like, yeah, maybe Florida can keep it to that or whatever it's going to be. But we said, hey, if Kentucky plays like Kentucky, they'll win this game by double digits, and that's what they did. I think that Tyree Appleby's injury is such a big part of that. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, it's just if you're Florida and he doesn't play pretty much the entire game, what do you do? I think no matter whether you're playing in Gainesville or Lexington, you're going to have a challenge. And when he went
Yeah.
out, I think it's just the dynamic of the game changes. Even though Florida managed to keep it close there for a bit, and goes into half really in a decent enough spot, but over time, I think it just kind of, your guards on Kentucky are going to make their plays, and not having your best guard out there in Appleby's just that makes it so much harder for Florida. So they had a they had a tough road no matter what. I think for them in this one, but Kentucky's Kentucky. Kentucky to me is playing as well as might be playing as well as any team in the country right now. Um, and yeah, I don't know what else you say about this team. For anyone that thinks this is like a ruse or this is just, I hope you're watching this team play because they are just absolutely dominant at times, and they may lose on Tuesday at Tennessee, but that's probably not going to change my opinion on Kentucky whatsoever, even if that happens, right? They are on another level right now in terms of their confidence, and we just haven't seen this. They're just getting more and more confident as the games go on, and that's a scary thought for everyone else because when everyone on this Kentucky team is sort of clicking, they are hard to handle. Their top seven is just man, they are something. And yeah, I don't really take a whole lot away from this game other than the fact that Kentucky is as good as advertised, and Florida is just going to continue to be, I think, a team that's right there, last four in, first four out. I think we're going to have this discussion for the next
Yeah.
3 weeks. So
Yeah, the Appleby thing, it's a thigh bruise, so I wouldn't think he'd miss, hopefully, a lot of time. He's, as you said, very key to what they're doing. He's played really well lately as Florida's gone on a little bit of a mini run and kind of helped carry them a little bit till they got Castleton back. But um, anyway, I don't think things change a lot for Florida. 59 in the net. Certainly Kentucky, nothing changes. 3 in the net, marching towards a 1 seed, barring some sort of problem there, which could start against Tennessee this week, but we'll hit that one on another podcast. Okay, let's talk about the Vols. That game with Vandy got chippy. Tennessee threatened to run away with it. Vandy hung tight. It kind of played out the way that we thought it would, and I thought at the end the difference was Tennessee was just more athletic with better guard play, and it walks away with now what I think is 10 wins in a row in a series that used to be pretty hotly contested, but just hasn't been for a while now.
yep, another game. We don't get all of them right, but like this was one that we said I think Vandy keeps it pretty close and has a chance to do that. And I think we saw early. I mentioned in the preview there's a chance to kind of overcompensate when you're so jacked up for a game. And I thought Vandy early on just got outplayed, in my opinion. And it's just one of those where eventually they started to figure it out. They realized, okay, we playing like this is not going to put us in a position to have a chance to win this game. And they eventually make their run and make things very interesting, down the stretch. But Tennessee just made more plays, and I can't say enough, how much of a difference Vanderbilt is, how much of a difference it makes having Chapman on the floor, but also having someone like Miles Studi play the way he plays. really over the past, what, I don't know, probably a couple weeks or so, he's really started to play really well, and we've seen flashes of that this year, but he's doing it more consistently. And I think when he makes shots like that, this team is, Vanderbilt's playing a lot of other teams, probably not Auburn, Kentucky, Arkansas, but if they're not playing Tennessee, if they're playing on the road against a team like Alabama, who in a game like that, turns the ball over a lot, I think they're right there with a chance to win,
Yeah.
and it's just Mississippi State, LSU. Like, I think that they're kind of that team now that I don't think you're putting them ahead of any of those teams, but they're getting close to like being on that level in terms of, not from a record standpoint, but just from how they're playing right now. And I think that is at least room, for optimism. I think if you're a fan out there and you're looking for something, I think this team is just continues to get better. But on the flip side, Tennessee is, again, they have figured it out, and you just remove that Texas game, which I just think, as I keep saying, that was all. I think a lot more about Texas. They have played also as well as anyone over the past month in the SEC. So good win for Tennessee. I think it's a better win than people will give it credit for,
Yeah.
just because I think people still kind of look at Vanderbilt as kind of where they've been over the past several years. But as we said, they're getting better. But Tennessee is just, they're figuring it out. They're becoming a lot more. I don't know what the word is, but they just have more of a flow on offense, I think is the
Well,
best way to
let
put it.
me. I think I can explain it. Okay, they're getting more scoring out of Josiah Jordan-James. Although he's 2 of 14 from the field, he's 9 of 10 from the foul line. Defensively, he's been there. Offensively, they can now get 10 points a night or more from him as a given, which they've needed. Zakai Ziegler really was a difference maker late. The ball's in his hands a lot. Between he and Kennedy Chandler, they got a couple of guys, and Vescovy too, right, who's been able to move off the ball and be a better player. I think their guard depth and what James has done has really made this team much better because they just have so many ways. I know offensively not one of the better teams in the country, but now they got different things they can do to beat you with different guys. And that's the difference that I see with them is, especially when Ziegler is really playing well, that just makes him so much better because there's a lot of parts there. This is for all its flaws, Blake, one of the deeper teams in the league. And that's really helped when Olivier Kumwa has gone down with injury. I know it's at a different position, but other guys have stepped up in different ways and really boosted what Tennessee's getting.
Yeah, and I think now the question is, can you do it against the top teams? Because they've done
Yeah.
this, but best team they've beaten is an LSU team that was shorthanded, right? So during this stretch, I think that's what I would sort of ask is, we've seen all this from Tennessee. Now the next step is, can you do this over the next 2 or 3 weeks against Kentucky, 2 games against Arkansas, against Auburn? I want to see how they play in those kind of games, but still, it's impressive what they're doing without question. I think now it's, can you answer that question of, look, can we do it against these teams like that? Because yes, you've still got that Arizona win, which is without question their best win on the schedule this year, but you've lost, all your games that you've lost, and this can be a good thing too, right? Is all the games you've lost are against top, what, probably 4 or 5 seeds in the NCAA tournament. So, but to be able to advance, you have to beat those kind of teams. So I think that's where I'm very curious to see, can this consistency kind of hold? And naturally, you're going to have a tougher challenge, and they may not be as consistent as they were against the South Carolina or someone like that. But that, I think, is the next step for Tennessee. If they can win, if they can beat Kentucky on Tuesday, right, then we know exactly what we're talking about here. It's like, that's what we want to see from them. But I think that's the most curious thing. I think if we have a question moving forward about them.
Well, we figured that whoever won LSU Mississippi State would take a big step forward, especially if it was LSU. Whoever lost could be in a world of hurt, especially if that's State. The game being in Baton Rouge, it went kind of the way that we thought it would, although State made it closer maybe than we thought. I mean, I say that it was 15 points at half, but big takeaways for me: Xavier Pinson playing 34 minutes. Tari Eason, who, again, a lot of years is a major player of the year candidate in the league, but not happening this year. LSU is starting to play, now that it's getting healthy again, more like LSU we saw in December and most of January.
Yeah, that shouldn't surprise anyone. I mean, we've been talking about this for a month or more now, right? We just keep saying, hey, I know they're in this issue, and I said, hey, I may be jumping off the bandwagon after the Vanderbilt loss because we didn't know if Xavier Pinson at that point. I think you're starting to think, okay, well, is he going to play? Is this guy going to play the rest of the year, or what are they thinking on this? Because you just didn't know. But now that he's back, it's just a different team, and I won't keep saying that because I've said it so many times over the past month. They're just a different team when he's on the floor, and it has nothing to do necessarily with just scoring. It's just a lot of other things that he can help them in, and that makes a difference for a team that really overall is not as deep as some of these other teams you're going to compare them to. They don't have the depth of a Kentucky or an Auburn or teams like that. Maybe even a Tennessee, although I guess you lose a starter, that changes a little bit. But I think that's the thing with LSU is you're really riding those top whatever 4, 5, 6 guys, and you have to have that production night in, night out. And so I think that's where it comes down to. Now, LSU does have, for example, they've got Sharif O'Neal coming off the bench. They've got, Gaines, someone like that. These are guys that are going to play, but when you take out such a big part of what you do, like what Xavier Pinson has been doing for them, it makes a huge difference. So when he's on the floor and leads the team in minutes, that's going to be a much different LSU team than the one you saw losing to Vanderbilt, right? And so I just think that they are. I'm now that I know he's playing again and he's gonna, should be fine at least what we've seen now. I don't really have those concerns about LSU in terms of I think they'll make the tournament, they'll get there, and if they're at full strength, they're going to be probably a bit of a dangerous team, and that's where seeding comes in, right? If they finish the season strong, committee's going to look at this and say, well, look at all these games they played without Pinson. If we were to slot this team lower, then I think if you're a team, let's say if LSU gets slotted at a 7 or something, wouldn't love that as a 2 seed because I'm thinking at full strength, LSU's probably more like a 4 or a 5, right? So that's the kind of things that I think you really think about, and this is all dependent on how they finish the season. If they lose to Georgia on Wednesday, everything changes. But that I think is something you look at with LSU here moving forward. Mississippi State, I mean, I thought they were pretty much done after the Tennessee game because, as we said, this is a team that just has not proven they can win on the road. Maybe they change that at Alabama. I wouldn't pick that. As we said, you're going to pick against Mississippi State anytime they play on the road right now. But yeah, good win for LSU, and I think they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I think this is a really good year for point guards. And I think if you're looking at teams that could sustain a loss to their top guy, you're looking at Kentucky, you're looking at Tennessee, you're looking at Auburn. That's just based on, and not that those guys wouldn't be hurting, but they have other guys who can step up and get the load. I don't think that Eric Gaines is the kind of guy that could carry LSU. And, I mean, you saw what happened when he had to. And that's not fair to Gaines. He's just not a carry-the-load point guard. Now that Pinson's back, he goes back to a role that he's more comfortable with, and it just tends to work. And in my mind, that's – if you want to boil it down to one thing, I think as much as anything, it's that. But Georgia beats South Carolina South Carolina beats Georgia in a game where we thought it would go the other way. For Carolina, Keyshawn Bryant, Jermaine Cousinard had really good games. Those are the names we have circled all year. Just calling them out for not being consistent for whatever reason. It's Georgia, so take that for what it's worth. But if Carolina gets that going forward, this is the team that can knock off some people here and there on the given night. For Georgia, I don't know what else to talk about other than Tom Crean skipped his post-game radio show, which prompted a little bit of a firestorm on Twitter. And, I don't know. That didn't lend the idea that he's going to be back for next year, whether that's true or not. But, you don't do that if you're a coach, and I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I have no idea. I know that they didn't play well. That's what I do know. It's just, I think we said coming in, maybe you think Georgia this is a spot to win a game, but I want to say, who was it? I think they only had 8 players that actually dressed or something like that. I don't remember what the number was going in because of their injury situation and such. So they had their main guys. I mean, they had, several of their main guys out there for sure, but Georgia is what Georgia is at this point. As I said, I mean, we were really taking a chance on saying they're going to win a game. They've only done one of those thus far this season. That's another one if you're Alabama, you're looking back on and thinking, my goodness, How did that happen? But I don't know what to say about this game. South Carolina they're fine. I mean, they're good against Georgia. I do know that, but
And
is
Vandy.
everyone else and Vandy? Yeah, against Vandy too. But I mean, everyone else, you don't know what you're going to get. But we said going in, can Keyshawn Bryant keep playing well? And he did here, 22 points. I mean, I just think look, we said coming to the season, if South Carolina was going to be a good team, they needed him. And he's just been so up and down. But now he's had 40 points in the past 2 games. And, Devin Carter has a big game. That's at least encouraging, I guess, if you want to look at it, having a freshman that has a big game like that. So uh, South Carolina is probably going to play the role of the spoiler the rest of the way, but anything beyond that, who knows? They still got LSU, Mississippi State, Bama, Auburn, so they'll probably win one of those games, I'm sure, just based on knowing how they play. But anything else, I don't have much of an expectation for these two teams or what kind of expect from them the rest of the way.
Hey, hats off to Missouri. Few teams in this league over the last month or so have consistently played as close to their ceiling as Missouri. And again, that's kind of a low ceiling comparatively speaking, but Tigers got it done at home against Ole Miss, put 5 guys in double-figure scoring, which is really good to see. And they're not an easy out against anybody, especially in their building right now.
Yeah, I mean they beat Ole Miss by 6. Lose to Florida at home by 1, lose to Auburn at home by 1, lose to A&M at home by 3, beat Alabama at home, beat Utah at home. So if you go back to December, that's all their home games right there. I mean, they have a couple plays here or there, and it's like you got to win over Auburn, you got to win over Florida. As we said, we thought they should have won both of those. Really, with the way where those games were at with a minute to go or something, you felt like Missouri was going to win the game. And so yeah, I mean, hats off to them. I agree, and I've said it for a while now. I think that I don't know what the future holds, for Missouri basketball and Conzo Martin and all that, but I can tell you that aside from just the top teams that you expect to be getting better right now, Missouri is one of those teams. Just when you look at where they were losing to UMKC on November the 15th and losing to Kansas by 37 on December the 11th, Liberty by 21 on December the 2nd. Illinois by 25 on December 22nd, Kentucky by 27 on December 29th. Since that point, aside from a blowout at Arkansas and at Iowa State, like this team has played pretty well. And I mean, they've been right there with a chance. So I don't think Arkansas will win. I don't think Arkansas will lose at Missouri on Tuesday, but like this is the kind of game that gets a lot more interesting just because of how Missouri's been playing. And we'll talk about that in our next video. But I think that they're another one. When you look at the remaining schedule, you got the back-to-back games against Mississippi State. If Mississippi State wants to even be in the discussion, they have to win both of those games. But I have a hard time believing they're going to do that. I'd probably think Missouri can beat them in one of those two when you're playing back-to-back like that. And, you still got games against Tennessee, LSU. So Missouri will also be a team that plays the spoiler role. I think they'll do it better in South Carolina just based on how they're playing. And, so they're playing well right now. So.
Lots of coverage coming this week. It's our usual stuff for basketball, which we're putting up videos on the SEC every day, Monday to Friday. Baseball is coming. We dropped our SEC West preview, got an East one coming up probably Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, and a couple more. So if you like our basketball coverage and you like baseball, you're going to love what we do on that side, probably as much as what we do here. If you're watching, and we're getting a lot of watch hours right now, and you haven't, hit that subscribe button. That helps us out more than you know. That's really the one thing we need now. We're getting a lot of views, but we need people to subscribe. That helps us get noticed. That helps us to try to make a little money from this so we can keep it going. But anyway, Blake, any parting thoughts before we go today?
No, we'll be back on the next one with our predictions for Tuesday's game and our preview for Tuesday game. Let's say that. Let's focus on the preview analysis part more than you do the predictions. I know.
I think some people were very focused on your predictions.
Well, I was gonna. Here's all I'll say.
Do we need the balm?
No. Here's all I'll say. If you want, and look, we're 99% of you are great, and you understand kind of what we do here, and I think it's easier for people to find one video and all of a sudden
Yeah.
it's the only thing you see. And I get it. I mean, look, if you just jumped in, we've got hundreds of videos on the channel. If you decide to jump into one and you don't have any reference point, I get it. But if you want biased coverage of your team, I promise you
Not the
there is a
place.
ton of that out. There's a ton of that out there. You can find that in a lot of places, but our job is to be as unbiased as we can be and try to spin it both ways. So that we have fun with it, and
Yeah.
I know it's funny because there's a lot of Alabama fans that watch our stuff, a lot of Arkansas fans that watch our stuff, and I know sometimes that can lead to some bickering and Auburn fans. Like there's just,
No.
but it's entertaining. But again, take our picks for what they are. We're just mostly focused on the analysis, and we spin it as picks because guess what? Everyone loves picks. So yeah, but it's fun, and man, I'm thinking ahead to like March now, and my goodness, we're gonna have so much to talk about when we, SEC tournament, NCAA tournament. If you think the way we're covering things now, we're gonna have so
You're gonna
much
love it.
for all the tournaments, and so that's gonna be a lot of fun. So yeah, be sure to subscribe because we do appreciate it, and yeah, be sure to check out all of our stuff on the
Well,
channel. So.
and the last thing to that is, if we do this with a spin or a bias towards any team, I think our audience is smart enough they're going to pick up on that. I mean, we literally try to be as fair as we can to everybody. Now, are we going to miss something? Yes. Are we going to have a bad take on something at times? Sure we are. But our goal here, and it's been the goal from the beginning, was to cover as much of every team as we can and do it as straight down the middle as we can. Because I think what you said, if you want biased coverage for your team, there are places that I could name for all 14 teams in the league where you can get it. If you want an overview of what's going on, spun as straight down the middle as we can get it, then I think we're for you. So
Yeah, there you go. If you want reality, we're for you. If you want what you want to hear, there are plenty of places out there to find that, I think.
yeah.
So, but hey, there's nothing wrong with that either. I get it. I mean, if I was a fan, I'd want to find places too that just
Yeah.
but we joke about this because I know some of you guys have fun with us in the comments and such, but we love it. I mean, we've got I don't know, Chris, if you've seen our Happy Gilmore quotes are coming in on the other video.
Oh, good.
And you have no idea what they are because you haven't watched the movie. But we won't go down that road. If you want to
No, we
learn more
won't.
about that, be sure to check out the SEC basketball player rankings video where Chris admitted he has never seen Happy Gilmore, and that prompted some comments. And I appreciate all the quotes that are coming in on that. So,
Well, we make every effort here to be culturally literate where we can, which is not easy when you got kids, but
yeah,
we must press on and try harder.
there we go.
All right, thanks for watching. Seriously, subscribe, tell a friend, and we got a ton of content coming this week, so we hope you'll be back for all that.